Well, hey guys, greetings and salutations and welcome to this new episode of Filthy Sports, a show where we talk about sports. Imagine that. I'm, of course, John Campia. Matt's over there.
You.
Ryan's right beside him.
What's up, everybody?
Ray is here.
Hey!
And you guys are here. Thanks for joining us on our show. We got a whole bunch of things we need to talk about here today, and we're going to start off with this. It makes me feel dirty to even say this, but the big event in the world of sports this weekend was not Bills versus Chiefs. No, it was a complete non-boxer named Jake Paul boxing a near 60-year-old man in Mike Tyson. Now, look, before we talk about the fight specifically, I will never understand why anybody ever pays any attention to Jake Paul fights. He's not, guys, listen to me. Those of you listening, watching out, listen to me. He's not a real boxer. He's not a real boxer because real boxers fight other real boxers. Jake Paul has had one fight against a real boxer, Tommy Fury, also known as Tyson Fury's little brother. And he lost that fight. Jake lost to the only guy that even looks like a real boxer. But before you think to yourself, well, Tommy Fury must be a really good boxer. No shame in losing to that. Guys, I'm going to read you the records of the guys Tommy Fury has fought. His latest fight was against a guy with one professional fight. Tommy Fury beat this guy who was 1-0. Okay.
Undefeated.
An undefeated guy. Amongst the other guys he fought was a guy who was 0-1. And these are all his wins. He won against a guy who was 0-1, who was 2-0, who was 0-9, 0-11, 2-26, 0-26, and 10-102. These are the guys that Tommy Fury has beat.
Yeah.
And Tommy Fury is the guy that Jake Paul lost to.
Yeah.
Jake Paul is not a real boxer. He's not a real fighter. And when he did fight somebody who even looks like a real fighter, that guy would be ranked like number 785. Not that they even ranked that low. That's how much of a non-issue Jake Paul actually is. And as far as Mike Tyson goes, I mean, listen, he looks phenomenal, Mike Tyson. And clearly, he's in incredible shape for a guy who is approaching 60 years old.
Yeah.
But Mike Tyson hasn't been the same. We were just talking about this before we started the show. It's not like he hasn't been the same since he retired, or he hasn't been the same since that Roy Jones Jr. exhibition match. He has not looked the same since he lost to Buster Douglas. Like, he was never the same after that. The Iron Mike mystique was gone after that. And now he's still in incredible shape, fabulous. And the fact that he could even get into a ring and fight a guy at almost 60 years old and being in the shape he is was phenomenal. But guys, we were talking about a guy who's not a boxer fighting a guy who was a boxer that's approaching 60 years old.
Yeah.
And this thing, guys, drew nearly 60 million live household views on Netflix.
Yeah.
More people tuned into this than followed election coverage.
Uh-huh.
And I will never understand that. But predictably, the fight was a joke. The first 30 seconds of round one were kind of like, ooh, okay, this is going to be a real fight. And it wasn't. Did
we go 30? It was quick.
Well, the rounds are only 2 minutes.
Yeah,
no, you're right. I was like, did we get a whole 30 seconds of good?
I mean, maybe, maybe the first 30.
The first 20?
Maybe.
You know, because
Yeah.
it kind of looked like, okay, this looks like a real fight. The guys feeling each other out, some jabs, some move. Like Tyson was moving his head the way he does. I was like, okay. But after that, it just became this slow, boring, whatever. And then meanwhile, the room I was in, and about 200 people in it.
Yeah.
And everybody's complaining, oh, it was boring. I'm like, well, what did you expect? What did you think was going to happen? That this guy who has never been a real boxer is suddenly going to turn into, Sugar Shane Mosley and this nearly 60-year-old guy is going to drop 20 years off his age?
Yeah.
I mean, look, And all I can say, guys, is the one good thing that I hope comes out of this. Can this please be the end of this idiotic circus? Like, who's Jake Paul going to fight next? Pauly Shore? The guy who played Urkel?
He's going to fight Joe Biden.
They're going to fight Joe Biden?
Yeah.
I mean, like, what? Can we please stop with this? There are real boxers having real matches who have actual skills. Guys, you turn on any legitimate boxing thing, and the guys fighting at the bottom of the card would beat the living shit out of Jake Paul in 30 seconds or less if they were flyweights. So can we please stop this? Like
60 million people watched it?
From the stat I saw was 60 million households tuned in live to watch this.
Yeah.
I don't know what.
It's not gonna. Then no.
Yeah.
No, John.
Not gonna happen.
The answer to that question is no. Yeah. That. But you know what? Like, boxing, unlike any other sport, will sell you just pure dog shit. And every time I'm like, maybe this is the time. Maybe this is one.
I think part of it is, I mean, I'm sure there's people like Jake Paul. I mean, he has a bunch of followers, but there's a bunch of people that don't like him, so they're hoping someone can beat him. But all these fights, he's just fighting guys that he knows he could beat. Either they're old, well, in this case, really old boxers, or almost retired MMA fighters.
Yeah.
And then you have the aspect of how much of it is actually real, because like it seems like he didn't want to hit Tyson really at all. He wanted to go the distance with him. Tyson, I know me and Ray were talking about it. Tyson kept biting his glove, and they're saying like that's a tick of his, but Ray was like, well, maybe he has to do that so he doesn't punch back. Like he's just letting this
why
happen.
Why would you have to bite your glove to not punch back?
This is all.
That's how I constantly do. I'm chewing on my clothes.
This is all on the
every day.
premise.
I'll
All
punch
on the
everybody
premise
in the head.
of if, let's say, there was a work in this fight, which I don't want to say at all because I don't want to be wrong about that. Accusing because if they
you're
were
afraid.
really going,
Say
really
you're
going
afraid.
at it, then they were. But for me, it just didn't look like both of them were really letting go on each other.
Well,
You know
I
what
think
mean?
well, that like John's room was everybody was like, I was just like, can this got to be over fast, and not because I was bored, but just because like I don't want to see an old man get housed on TV, and like
Well, we already had to see his ass earlier.
Well,
that was enough.
we're not to the positives yet, Ryan.
Oh,
so
sorry.
no, like that, and I think I don't know. You would know, Ray, but like to me, I'm like, oh, even Jake Paul doesn't want to knock him out. Like he didn't even want to do it. It was like we're like right in the middle of it. We're like, this is a horrible decision. We're in a room of 100,000 people, and nobody wants. Like, if we could have just cut the lights out and then like everybody go home, that would have been better.
I actually stopped watching after the fourth round. After the fourth round, I was kind of like,
it just got worse.
That's
he
what I'm
didn't
saying.
throw any punches.
there's
He
like
just
no
walked
chance.
around.
I will say, if there was a highlight of the night, it was the actual real boxing matches on
the
the
two
undercard.
girls that fought.
The two girls
right
and Abel
before it,
Ramos.
that fight was great.
Those were two great fights. Everything else around it was just a pile of just a spectacle.
It's like celebrity
we'll
boxing.
call it a spectacle. It was more of an event than a fight. Really.
But even like celebrity boxing takes place like in a studio in Orlando, Florida, or something. They sold out the AT&T.
Yeah,
I mean,
That's so many
they sold a box near the ring for $2 million for two
that's
guys
wild.
to sit in.
That's
Let me-
wild.
but
recliners,
Here's
so.
a question I have. So, like, my buddy sent me the numbers afterwards of Netflix. By the way, a lot of people were experiencing streaming issues
Oh yes.
on Netflix, which has got a lot of people worried about when Netflix tries doing NFL games. Monday Night Raw starts on January 5th or something like that. But they get 60 million households. Is that a good or a bad thing? And the reason I ask that is because you got 60 million people tuning in and the product you delivered was crap. So is it a good thing that they got that many viewers? Because
Yeah, like a bad taste right off the bat.
are people
Yeah.
going to actually bother to tune in to watch Jake Paul's next celebrity beatdown?
Well, yeah, I don't know.
you know, it's just become. Hey, it's like these events are just made to get people's attention. There's not really any competition in the actual fight
not.
itself or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just. I think it's the time we live in right now. It's like, hey,
Social media
hey,
stuff.
hey, me. Oh, we're
Yeah.
going to do all this, and
I'm
then the
gonna knock out
product,
Mike Tyson.
the end
I'm not-
result is just a disappointment. It's just a
Yeah.
disappointment, and everyone knows that, but they still show up.
But that's
They
my
still
question.
show up. Their
I don't
eyes are
question-
still-
I don't question why they had the fight.
Yeah.
See how much money they
Because
made?
they make money.
Yeah,
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 a
Yeah,
ton of money.
my question is, why is anybody paying attention?
What? It was on Netflix, John.
That's much more of a.
And I was sitting at home doing nothing.
Right. A lot of us are Netflix subscribers, so it's on.
Yeah.
It's an event. It's live. Curiosity kills.
Yeah.
So
That's
we all
Tyson.
put our eyes. But
And
it's
Tyson.
just-
Yeah.
but it's a bigger problem in just the whole world right now than just the sporting event.
Anyway, guys, question is for you. Why were you interested in this fight? Like,
I'm
why?
talking to you.
I'm you specifically. You're the problem. Why were you interested in this fight at all? Because clearly a lot of people were. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comments below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. That down. Let's go on to this, shall we? What truly should have been the main story of the sporting world this weekend was you had another matchup of the Kansas City Chiefs, who were undefeated, versus the Buffalo Bills, who are on fire. I said on this show last week, the Chiefs are simply not that good. They're good. They're good. And I wouldn't bet money against them going into the playoffs, but I mean, like, their record's 9-0. You think they're dominant. They're not. And we went over their scores of the games. They're winning by the skin of their teeth. Mahomes is not having a great season by Mahomes' standard. And what I say in this show, guys, I said Buffalo wins and wins handily. Buffalo won, and they won handily. They won handily. Now, and by the way, it was 30-21.
Yeah.
The game wasn't that close. The game wasn't, I think there was like the fourth down botch. It kind of led to a KC touchdown. Everything. Like they won by 2 scores. They very easily could have won by 3 or more. So Buffalo handled business, got it done. And don't get me wrong, I'm not sitting here saying Kansas is not a good team. They're a great team, but I'm just saying they're not nearly as good as the 9-0 at the time record kind of made it look like. So we're not really here to talk about the game itself, but it brings up a question. Now that it's clear this is not some majorly dominant team that's going to run the board because now they've lost, I think now is a good time to have the question. Who is indeed the best team in the NFL right now? Like if you were to have like a big battle royal, who are the 4 teams left standing and really who's the number 1 team? Who would you put your money on? So I think there are 3 teams automatically in the conversation.
New York Jets.
Yeah, New York Jets. Well, we'll talk about the Jets a little bit later. I think there are 3 teams. If we're going to say it comes down to 4, there are 3 teams I think all of us would agree on. And then a question about the 4th.
Okay.
The 3 teams that I think we would all agree on are, number 1, the Kansas City Chiefs. I think they're one of the best teams in the league.
Number 1 team. He said it. I heard him say it. Yeah.
Another team I think is automatically in that Final Four discussion is the team that just beat them, the Buffalo Bills. The 3rd team that I think you'd have to be certifiably insane if you don't say is in this conversation is the team that just put up a 50-burger, the Detroit Lions. I mean, I think that's clear and obvious.
Yep.
Now that leaves an interesting discussion for who's the other team. You got Baltimore is now 7-4, but they're better than 7-4, but they are 7-4. You got Pittsburgh that just beat them at 8-2. Houston, I think, has dropped out of the conversation now that they've lost a couple in a row. They're not looking like on fire, kind of like they did last year. Chargers the Chargers have very quietly gotten themselves to a 7-3 record, by the way. Philadelphia, who, remember, just a few weeks ago, people were talking, are they going to fire their coach? They're 8-2 now. And Minnesota, let's not forget about them. I mean, granted, they start 6-0 or something like that. Now they're 8-2, but they are 8-2. So obviously we all agree on Buffalo, Kansas, and Detroit. I'm going to go on a limb and say the 4th team in that conversation should be the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think the Steelers have looked great. They looked pretty darn good when Justin Fields was playing quarterback for them. Since they made the switch to Russell Wilson, they look great. And that was just kind of stamped now by beating a really red hot Baltimore Ravens team this week. Now, if that's who I'm going to say is the final 4, like the 4 best, I'll tell you right now, if every team went to battle right now, there's not a single team in this league that if you put them 1-on-1 against anybody, that includes Buffalo, that includes Kansas, that includes Pittsburgh, I'm putting my money on the Detroit Lions. Putting my money on the Lions.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Jared Goff just threw for 412 yards and one more incompletion than touchdown passes. He had 4 touchdown passes, no picks, and 1 incompletion. They're 9-1 now. They look absolutely on fire. They lost their best defensive player. Guess what? Their defense hasn't lost a step. And the offense just seems to be getting hotter and hotter. Now, granted, you could say they just played the Jacksonville Jaguars. Hey, that's great. Jacksonville played 10 other teams this year. None of them were able to do that to them. But Detroit is just steamrolling everybody. So I would say right now that I would have to say I think the Super Bowl favorite would have to be Detroit. And because I think they beat Kansas easily. I think they beat Buffalo easily. I think they beat just about I think there's some teams that provide some pretty interesting matchup issues for them, but I still would put them to win. I don't know, Ryan, who would you say, if you had to bring it down to 4 to start, who would you say are the 4 teams in the conversation? Then ultimately, who would you say is the best team in the league?
I probably would say the same 4. The Chiefs.
Oh, so you'd also put the Steelers in there.
Chiefs, Bills, Steelers, because with Wilson, with their defense, and Wilson showed, I mean, he hasn't been lighting it up, but he didn't make a bad turnover this last game, but he can manage the game. He can make plays when it needs to, and he has experience. So, and they just beat the Ravens, although they typically do beat the Ravens. I would say the Steelers too, and then the Lions. For best team right now, I probably would go with the Lions too. They have scored the most points. They've not given up the most points compared to the other teams. So I think they're probably the best team. But at this point, like you're saying, I mean, if you look at their records, the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Lions all basically have like 9 wins each. They've all played good teams.
Bills, Chiefs, and Lions combined have 4 losses.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Bills, Chiefs, and Lions combined have 4 losses.
And like you said, like Vikings have a good record. They lost to the Lions. That was a close game. These other teams, they're all, like you said, the Ravens are good. All these teams could beat anybody. That's what's kind of good about it, is there isn't some clear-cut favorite. There's obviously better records, but any given Sunday is the saying. But I think right now, the way the Lions are playing, where Goff's throwing more touchdowns than incompletions, like it's hard to compete with that. And they have a good defense, even with Hutchinson out. And I saw a video, Hutchinson's already running in the water treadmill.
Oh, they're still insisting that if they make it deep in the playoffs, he could come back.
The ballet commercial. So he's probably going to come back. They didn't. The trade deadline's done, so they're not picking up anybody else. So yeah, I think it's the Lions at this point.
You know what? I know a lot of people want to say, John, the Eagles, they're putting up some big wins, and what are they, 9-2 now or something like that? Here's the problem, though. I watch the Eagles, and they can look dominant, but they are radically inconsistent. And last year, what were they, 11-0 or 11-1? They were something like that in the first half of the season. And then they won like one of the last 6, 7, or 8 games or something like that, and they limped into the playoffs. And so I just don't know that I trust them yet. They're great right now, but I wouldn't put them in that.
Yeah, that's their top 5 then, or what? Like, there's nobody in the NFC worth of shit except for
maybe.
Detroit.
I think I'd put them in that 5th spot right now, but I just don't trust them right now.
It's a grim look. I don't know why I don't know. I'm like, the numbers are like Pittsburgh's good.
The Pittsburgh
like,
thing that scares me is they don't put up a lot of points. Their defense holds people, but if someone like the Lions can score 35
you won't be
points,
able to keep up with them.
They can't. They can. Their defense is good, but it's not that. I mean, they're going to keep scoring. Sure. So, but I mean, that's why we play, right? That's
well, then that too, like Detroit, like looking at how they win, like the exact criticism John has of Kansas City is like, they're barely beating these teams. Like Detroit's like, if the team's bad and
we're blowing them out,
they blow them out. So they're putting it together full complete game like that. So
that's
all right.
I wish I could argue with you, but I can't.
Yeah, I like right now. Is there anybody who thinks Kansas is the best team in the league?
The only it's not the playoffs yet.
Yeah, I mean, again,
that's the.
I keep saying Mahomes is not having a very good season by Mahomes standard, but ask me if I would bet against him once they get into the playoffs. That's a fool's errand.
Yeah, one of the things I looked up was during Buffalo has won 4 straight regular season games against the Chiefs, but the Chiefs has won 3 playoff games against the Bills. So,
and that's
when it
where
counts,
it gets tricky. All right, guys. Question is for you. Now that Kansas City is no longer undefeated, they've got that. They're now 9-1. still a great team with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. But do you think they're the best team in the league? I think it's Detroit by a mile. Maybe you think it's Pittsburgh. Maybe you think it's the Chargers. I mean, I don't know. Whatever you guys think, jump down into our comments and let us know your thoughts. All right. That down, guys. Let's go to the opposite end of this pendulum here. So we were just talking about who we think are the best teams in the league and ultimately the best team in the league because of, now that Kansas has lost. But not a question of who's the worst team in the league. Because if we were going to have a question of the worst team in the league, we would be talking about teams like Carolina, teams like Jacksonville, teams like New England,
The Titans.
and more. But the real question is, who's the most disappointing team in the league right now? Like New England's disappointing, but nobody was expecting big things from New England, right? Cleveland is 2-8, but nobody expected them to be much better than 2-8. Jacksonville is 2-9, but nobody expected them to be much better than 2-9. I'd say one of the most disappointing teams has got to be the Raiders. Because at 2-9, look, nobody expected the Raiders to make the playoffs this year, but I think we're expecting a little bit more of that. I contend to you there are two teams that are definitively the most disappointing teams in the league so far this year. And now we've got to decide which one is the most disappointing. One of those teams is the Chicago Bears, who are 4-6. And obviously one of the other ones is Matt's New York Jets.
Yeah.
At 3-8.
I've never been to New York, John. I don't even know.
At 3-8. With Chicago, again, nobody was picking Chicago to win the Super Bowl this year, but with new personnel, Caleb Williams coming into play, obviously they've had a lot of issues and turnover. We all are very well versed on how south it's gone. It's kind of a remarkable thing that they've won 4 games at this point. Is that it? Or is it the New York Jets, who some people were picking to go to the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
I know that seems ridiculous now, but preseason, there's so many people I listened to that said they had a really good shot at going to the Super Bowl. Why? Because Aaron Rodgers is going to be playing for them. All right. They've won 3 games. They're, what are they? 1-4, 1-5 since they fired their coach.
Yeah.
Because he was the problem.
It seems like an eternity ago, too, huh?
It does. It does seem like forever ago, doesn't it?
Yeah.
By the way, Robert Sully, you know what he's doing for funsies now?
Crushing checks.
Cashing checks,
Yeah.
and he's over on the sideline of the Green Bay Packers, helping out the Packers.
Oh, there you go.
Because he was like in the Green Bay Packers coach's wedding party, and vice versa. So he's helping them out on their side now and laughing all the way to the bank. So what I'm going to say is going to surprise you.
Okay.
First of all, am I right in saying that these have got to be the 2 most disappointing? Because there are worse teams.
No.
I just don't think there was much higher expectations than those worst teams.
The only one I would maybe throw in there is the Giants, because they thought they'd be a little bit better than last year, and they're worse, and they're already getting rid of the quarterback they just gave a huge contract to.
I don't know why people thought they're going to be much better when they still have the same quarterback.
I don't know either,
know what I
but
mean?
that was what people said.
Well, there's like bad luck teams like San
they
Francisco.
injuries are
hurt.
different.
And like
San
can't get it
Francisco,
together. But I don't know if I don't know about the Bears. It's probably the Jets.
Because you're right.
I texted Ryan. I was like, "This is a big weekend for Campia. He's really gonna come in on Monday and think he's Nostradamus."
But wait, you bring up the 49ers.
Mm-hmm.
They're 5-5 right now. And a lot of people thought, again, a Super Bowl contending team, but Kittle was out again this week.
Yeah. Well, they kind of pooped it up this week, but then not disappointing like they're toast. It's just like nothing's really going great.
I mean, they can still make the playoffs.
They can still make the playoffs, but they've had, obviously, like their 3 best players have been out.
Yeah.
It's been
rookies
difficult.
like recovering from a gunshot wound. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's there's like a snake.
Yeah, a little thing like that.
Okay, I guess you can, nurse your gunshot wound. But yeah, the expectation is it's probably
it has to be the Jets. They're the ones that had the Super Bowl. aspirations, and they traded all their picks and spent all this money on a team that's in the
And
bottom
they're
of
kind
the.
of stuck, right?
They're toast.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
They fired their coach. They don't have an interim coach.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not in
And
a
they're
good
going to have
spot.
a hard time getting a decent coach to come in there.
Not with what
the
they have
owner
now. They got a clean house. Like
Yeah.
they got to start over.
Yeah.
For the
I'm going to
fifth time
surprise
or
you.
whatever.
I think Chicago's the bigger disappointment. And I'll tell you why. While it is true that there were a bunch of people predicting that the Jets were Super Bowl contenders, I was not one of them.
What a campy sack. We shit on the Jets for 3 months.
But I mean, I am not one of them. I have never thought the Jets were going to be the good this year.
Sure. Yeah,
Everything,
that's-
Aaron Rodgers, I'm
sure.
like, Aaron Rodgers is not Aaron Rodgers anymore.
Okay.
Now, did I think they would be 3-8? No.
Probably not. Yeah.
No, admittedly not. But I did not think, I thought there was a good chance they didn't make the playoffs. But then I looked at their record once they like lost the 2 in a row after they fired the coach. Say, you know what, they could still make the playoffs because they had a very easy schedule. Now that's out of the
Yeah.
question.
Yep.
So that's not going to happen either.
Yeah.
I never thought Chicago was going to be a Super Bowl contending team, but I honestly thought with Caleb coming in, because I went and watched him play live a couple of times when he was still at USC. I really, and maybe I was a fool for thinking, I really thought they were a 9-10 win team. I really did. And I thought Chicago this year was going to be the Detroit Lions of 2 years ago, where they're going to win a few more games than people were expecting. And it was going to be the year they turned the corner. And it just hasn't turned out that way. It's been phenomenally disappointing. So while I think the Jets are amongst the worst teams in the league and certainly a massive disappointment, I'm going to personally say I think the bigger disappointment is Chicago. I don't know. Ryan, what do you think?
I'm going with the Jets. They're the ones that spent their entire future to bring in Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams and gave everybody big contracts, and have a worse record than the Bears. So I can't say the Bears are most disappointing. I do have a question though. Is your disappointment? I know it's a team game, but is your disappointment more in Caleb not playing well than just the Bears overall not succeeding?
I think it's it's even with the Caleb thing, it's not really about Caleb not playing well. It's like, and he's not playing great, but he's a rookie and whatever. They have not set him up for success either. It's like the overall as a team, the defense isn't what they thought it would be. The offensive line hasn't been what they thought it would be. Caleb has certainly underperformed a little bit, but again, rookie and all that kind of stuff. The coaching was, obviously their coaching went under a massive microscope after that Hail Mary pass at the end against Washington.
Yeah.
Like where it's like so many of the other sports shows like went down and cataloged all the mistakes that happened from a coaching point of view on down on that. And they just fired their offensive coordinator. He's out. I think the head coach is going to be on his way out soon. I mean, so it's just been like a complete overall disappointment. It's not just been one kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Strong name. Eberflus that's a strong name.
Eberflus?
Eberflus, yeah.
Good name.
Pretty good.
And he's younger than Mike Tyson.
Maybe he could fight Jake Paul.
So if he's looking for a gig, I know a
He's not
certain
coaching Chicago anymore. You know what?
noodle-haired
Fight Jake
gentleman
Paul.
that's looking for a scrap.
All right, guys, the question is for you. Who do you think is the most disappointing team of the year so far? I mean, we're mentioning Chicago and New York, but maybe you got somebody else who should be on that list. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comments below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. That down. Let's move over to basketball here for a second. It's been a very interesting year already. Like the last I checked, the Cavs are still undefeated, right?
15-0.
Yep.
They're honing in on that Golden State record now. Was what, 24?
24 or 25, I forget.
24, 25 and 0. Maybe they can get there. I mean, there's been a lot of interesting stories so far this year, but this was interesting. Every major sport has a problem with how do you make the All-Star game interesting. NFL really struggled with that because players didn't even want to go to the Pro Bowl anymore. And so they made some changes. They made it flag football and stuff like that, which I actually thought was kind of fun and interesting to do. Baseball did something interesting a few years ago where they said, tell you what, let's put something on the game. The league that wins the All-Star game gets home field advantage in the World Series. Some people complain about that. I thought that was great. It actually gives something to legitimately play for in the All-Star game. And when there's something on the line, it makes it more interesting. Hockey has played around with the All-Star format, everybody. Well, now the NBA is apparently considering a revamp of the whole thing, because last couple of years, people have not been happy with the All-Star game. Like, at all. Last year especially, people hated it.
Yeah, it was bad.
So they're talking about playing around with it, and they're discussing a new format. Ryan, can you kind of break down for us what this format is?
So they don't have all the full details yet, but basically there'd be 4 teams of 8 players. So 3 of the teams would be the 8 All-Stars that get voted in. And then the 4th team would be whoever wins the Rising Stars game between the freshman team and the sophomore team. So then there'd be 4 teams, and then the example would be team 1 plays.
So if I understand this right, so 3 teams of 8 that are actually selected All-Stars.
Yes.
And then the rookie team and the sophomore team play each other, and the winner of that becomes the 4th team.
Correct.
So that you got like 24 legitimate All-Stars.
Yep.
And then either a team of rookies and sophomores.
Yep.
Okay. And that's the 4 teams you'd have.
Yep. So then like team 1 would play team 2 and team 3 would play team 4. And then whoever wins those games plays in the main game on All-Star Sunday to figure out who's the winner. So
Ray loves it.
There's no, they haven't said how the teams would be picked. Obviously they've done the draft before where the captains pick the teams and stuff. So I don't know how they would pick these teams. I also, like John and I were talking, there's rumors they might play all the games on Sunday. So everyone would play not everybody, but whoever wins would play 2 games. So the games would have to be shorter.
If you're the rookie, well, no, you play your rookie sophomore game the day before.
Yeah,
He plays,
which is Friday.
Friday.
Because in my mind, it'd be Friday they'd play, Saturday they'd play, and then Sunday would be the last game. But the thing I read said Sunday there'd be all the games. So besides the rookie game.
So you'd play 2 games.
Yeah. So they'd have to be like short games or play to a point total and it ends or something. I don't know. They haven't said how that would work yet.
That's
so
when they break it down, I like the idea.
Yeah.
But when you break it down, I'm like, oh, that'll never happen.
Yeah.
Never happen. Like the big debate is like, did this guy play every week?
Yeah, but part of the reason also is they're saying this gives more, I don't want to say screen time, but playing time and stuff for the All-Star weekend for all the players. Because on Sunday when they play the game, there's some guys that play like 5 minutes,
Yeah.
10 minutes. So now everyone gets a chance, and then with the rookies too, they get some more time. And who knows, like if a team gets hot from 3, anybody can win one of these games.
Yeah.
So there's that intrigue from it. But yeah, they're trying to make something more exciting because last year's game, which I forgot was 211 to 186.
Yeah.
Which sounds horrible.
Nobody was even trying.
Yeah, it's just a pull up from half court shooting fest, and nobody cares. So they need to do something. They also need to figure out what, kind of back to what you're saying, John. What do they get for winning? Is it just money? What do they get out of this? I think that's something they have to figure out still.
What's at stake?
Yeah, what's at stake for this?
Because, I'll tell you what, one of my problems with this, and by the way, I applaud them saying we got to do something.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's great. I do. And even looking at this, I think, you know what? You're trying something. You're trying to mix it up. I like that. Now, one of my concerns I have about this format is like, say it comes down to the last game. That's what people are going to think of as the All-Star game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because of this format, you're talking about that big final marquee game where if he's on the team that lost, Joker is not in that game.
Yeah.
Luca is not in that game.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ant isn't in that game.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, that seems kind of weird that you're putting yourself in a position where you could get your final 2 teams and it's not the most glamorous all-star team
Yeah.
playing. So that's one of the drawbacks I see with it.
It would, well, I don't know if it would make it interesting, but maybe it would. When the first games are played, it'd be interesting if the winning teams could pick the losing players for their team, like as a draft. So like if you're on the team that loses, John, and my team wins, I could pick you on my team or Matt or somebody else, the leftovers from the previous. So everyone still gets a chance to play.
So now the
Like
winning
pickup.
team gets, instead of 8 players, now has 9.
Yeah,
going into
or
the
however
final.
they pick 2 players. I don't know, 4 players, just so there could be well, crap. If LeBron and Jokic didn't make it, and I can get them on my team to win my game, then I'm going to pick them to get them on my team. So I don't know if they've talked about that, but at least that gives a little bit more players for the last game. It can make a little bit more intrigue and get more fan. Because if you're really like you're saying, if you're there to watch like whoever, Steph and all that, and they're not in the last game, are you going to watch it? Like some people probably won't watch it.
Well,
if their players aren't in there.
And the All-Star Weekend itself has lost a little bit of luster because
I think the
3-point shooting contest is still amazing.
Maybe that's it.
But like the dunking competition is like most of the people don't even compete in it anymore. No. So there's that. The All-Star game is just a bunch of guys casually running up and down the court and heaving up threes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's just.
I mean, the dunk contest. It's not like they give the award to the actual winner. Ooh. What's up, Aaron Gordon? Shout out, Aaron Gordon. Got screwed twice. We still remember.
I don't know who we're attacking. Yeah. Somebody is a piece of garbage.
Yeah.
I don't know who it is.
But I mean, look, is it crazy for me to say? Because Ryan, you and I went out to dinner the other night.
Yeah.
And we were talking about the NBA Cup, the in-season tournament. Yeah. And I was skeptical about it last year. I enjoyed it last year, but we were talking about it feels like there needs to be something a little bit more on the line than just a check for the players that win.
Yeah, then I don't know how to fix it. Because I'm thinking the more we talk about it, I'm like, yeah, that's definitely not gonna happen.
Like Ryan brought up, like, say the team that wins the NBA Cup is like, hey, you know what? You automatically get home court first round, or something like that.
Yeah.
They should, but I feel like the same has to be done for the All-Star game. I feel like not. If you win the All-Star game, you automatically get to the NBA final. Nothing like that, but there has to be something
like a bye week,
something that has stakes, something that has importance.
Yeah. It's also a tough sell to, like, everybody wants to play less games, like the schedule, and you're like, how about we add 2 more in one day?
Well, yeah, the tournament added 2 games to certain teams.
They're going to play those games anyway. They just rebranded as like these are special games.
Well, like last year, the Lakers and Pacers played 1 extra game than everybody else for that thing.
But that was like that was a big win for the
Lakers. Inaugural winners hanging in the rafters.
Yeah, and it broke.
I mean, listen, in the world of soccer, those in-season tournament things are
important.
A big deal. Yeah. If they can make that into something, because one of the things that I liked about it last year, I know we're supposed to be talking about the All-Star game, but still, one of the things I liked about last year is that actually, in that early season, it actually made the games feel important. Because in an 80-plus game season, it's hard to feel importance for a lot of the games and stuff like that, but it actually gave some meaning to them.
And a few of the basketball podcasts I listen to, and I've watched a few of the games, not just Laker games, but all the ones. And those games, they play harder. You can tell, like they're trying to win. And also the thing is in the brackets, when it comes to like tiebreakers, you need to score more points.
Differential, right?
So these fools are like trying to run up the score at the end of the game to get extra points. So there is something going on with those games. And the aspect of playing harder. Yeah, they need to do something in the All-Star game. The other thing I'll call for the All-Star game is last year, one of the things that people liked was the Steph versus Sabrina for the 3-point. They're talking about adding Caitlin Clark and Klay Thompson.
No, listen, 1,000% guarantee you Caitlin Clark is going to play some role in the All-Star weekend.
So this All-Star
she was out drawing viewership than NBA games. Like they're gonna bring her in.
Yeah, that's probably the lane that they need to go in. Like even when I was like, the NFL has the All-Star game, but nobody's ever given a shit about it. But I used to like remember like, give me that quarterback competition.
Oh yeah,
just do this for a weekend and give everybody the weekend off.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, or something. Yeah, something like that. Something's got to change because even last year, I think it was last year, Adam Silver was like, "Well, you guys scored the most points. The game's over now." He was furious at the end of the game. So
and me and Matt were talking. They did the thing a couple years ago where it was called the Elam ending.
Yeah.
Whereas like the last quarter, they took the point differential. I'm gonna get it wrong, but basically, the only one team had scored at this point, and then you could meet them, but you're like lower, so there's more of a chance to catch up and win the game. And I thought that was cool, but they nixed that and they went back to the old school.
Yeah, everybody loved it, and they're like,
and then they got rid of it. So
anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about the proposed changes to the All-Star Weekend? Maybe you're one of the 6 people out there who thinks, no, All-Star Weekend is great the way it is. But what other ideas would you have about making the All-Star Weekend feel more important or more like something you'd want to watch? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to our final topic today here, shall we? In the world of combat sports, there wasn't only one fight with an aged superstar who probably shouldn't have been in there. There was also a big UFC 309. And the big fight was John Bones Jones, who bravely decided to take on the competition of a 42-year-old man who hasn't won a fight in 4.5 years. Brave. That was gutsy, man. That's gutsy. As John Bones Jones fought Stipe Miocic, who, by the way, I love Stipe.
Oh, yeah.
I think Stipe has been one of the most dynamic, fun UFC heavyweight fighters I've ever watched. 5 years ago.
I was going to say 10 years ago.
Yeah,
With
like
John.
years ago.
Sure.
And I said this was another one of those fights where I did not understand why anybody was excited about it. Because again, in the UFC right now, because John Bones Jones, due to injury, had to take a bit of a layoff for a bit, they do what they did, and they brought in and had a kind of mini tournament for an interim heavyweight champion. Tom Aspinall is right now the UFC interim heavyweight champion. So what is traditionally happens is once the champion comes back, they fight the interim champion to unify the belt. Why was John Bones Jones fighting a 42-year-old man who had not won a fight in nearly 5 years? Let me repeat that. The heavyweight title fight was against a guy who hasn't won a fight in nearly 5 years. And now, John Bones Jones is talking about, oh yeah, I'm not going to fight Aspinall next.
Oh, he's not.
There's not enough money in it for me.
Oh.
I'll fight, whatever. It's like, what are you talking about? He's the interim champion. You have to fight him. As far as I'm concerned, you don't get to call yourself the champion until you unify that belt and fight the guy who's the interim champion. I feel that way about any fighter in any weight division. So anyway, this fight happens, and it was exactly what everybody feared it would be. Stipe, being 42, haven't had one fight in the last 5 years, looked real slow, completely out of his element. And John looked good. John Bones looked good, but he didn't look as great as we're used to seeing John Bones Jones look. But he handled him pretty easy. I was surprised it went 3 rounds. And again, it just proved the point. Like, what are we doing? He went in there and bravely fought a 42-year-old man who's won one fight in almost 5 years. Like, am I on crazy pills? Like, how is this guy a heavyweight title contender? Now, you can at least make the argument. You can at least make the argument that Stipe has never had a rematch since losing the title. And typically speaking, when a champion loses a title, at some point they get a rematch. I get that, but it's not a coverall blank check. He hasn't fought in forever. He hasn't won in forever. And he's now 42 years old. And granted, John, Randy Couture won the heavyweight title when he was like 40.
John.
Okay, yeah, but that was a different time.
Okay.
He also was fighting consistently.
Yes,
Back
yes,
then.
he was. Yeah, actively and
Yeah.
consistently. And so I had very, very little interest in this fight. To me, it was nothing more than a glorified Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson kind of thing. It was a fight that had an absolute foregone conclusion. And listen, I'll say it right now. John Bones Jones has to fight Tom Aspinall, or they should strip him of the title. It's just that simple. You shouldn't get a say. There's an interim champion there. You have to fight him and unify the title. If not, you should have the title taken away.
Yeah.
I think it's that simple. I don't know. Ryan, how do you see this?
The problem is Dana White does whatever John Jones wants, it seems like.
Yeah.
Like he lets him kind of call his own shots. The thing that bugs me kind of the most, and he did beat him. I watched it. It was pretty cut and dry. I mean, John Jones is good. Everyone knows he's good. He's never really lost. He lost a DQ'd elbow strike to.
Yeah, where he did the north-south elbow strikes against Matt.
He's never really lost a fight. Now, if
Sure, he did. Only the judges gave it to him anyway.
Gustafson and Reyes. He lost those fights
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah. Now,
but he did beat Gustafson. He beat him after, so I'm okay.
The first Gustafson fight, I think he won that in the last round, and the last one he got a very timely takedown. That was a super close fight, but I was cool with them giving the win. But the
Reyes one.
Reyes fight,
Yeah.
I don't fucking care what any judge anywhere says.
Yeah.
Reyes won that fight.
Yeah.
He won that fight. Jones lost.
Yeah.
But whatever. But that's like one.
Yeah.
One in his career.
Yeah. So, and I think the issue is, I don't think anybody's arguing it. Everyone's like, "Oh, he's the greatest of all time."
He's not. He's not.
Well, I get it. He's beat. Well, I guess my point is, based on his record and his dominance, he has beat people. But I don't like how people won't let. Like, yes, he's really good. He's one of the best of all time. But you don't have to like him. Like, he's had horrible things outside of the ring. He's ducking people now. He had lots of steroid issues. So, like, yes, he may be the greatest of all time, but there's some asterisks there. So I kind of don't like when people are like, you have to admit he's the best. He beat Stipe. Well, like you're saying, he hasn't fought in 5 years.
And Stipe was 42 years old.
Yeah, and the last fight, he got knocked to the moon by Ngannou. So it's not like he just lost a decision fight back then. So Aspinall's the interim. He's not going to fight him because if he thinks he could beat him, he would fight him. Now, the money thing, I kind of agree. Him fighting Aspinall is not going to get him the paycheck fighting Pereira will. But if you're the champion, and that was the good thing about UFC back in the day, they made the fights. It wasn't like boxing where you could duck somebody
Dictate
forever
your fight, yeah.
and say, "Oh no, I'll fight this." Like there's mandatories, but you could drop a belt, whatever. Like UFC was that way. Currently, this doesn't seem like they are. Like if Dana's not making him fight the interim champion, it's not like he's even the number one contender. He's legitimately the champion, and they're not going to make that the mandatory fight. Dana did say he was going to. That would be the fight, but it doesn't seem like it. Like Jones is going to back out and probably not try to fight him. So, like, if he doesn't want to fight Aspinall, I think you have to take the belt. Otherwise, the heavyweight division is a joke.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. Listen, fighting Alex Pereira is not a small thing at all. But Pereira's a guy who was fighting at middleweight not long ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, I want to fight that guy at heavyweight. What?
I mean,
There's an look.
Yeah.
You want to pick who you want to fight. Don't be champion. When you're not champion, go ahead, pick whoever you want to fight. But if you're the champ, you have to fight the next guy in line. And like Tom Aspinall won the interim heavyweight championship, waiting while Johns was sitting on the bench, and that no fault of his own. It's okay, cool. Now he's back. All right, you wanted to give Stipe a shot. It's a big money fight. Old man hasn't won a fight in 5 years. Okay, whatever, you did it. Congratulations. Now will you fight the interim champion? Nah, I don't think I'll fight the interim champion
Gotta
now.
negotiate.
Well, yeah, if it's money, if it's just money, then
well,
just pay him.
it's money,
What's
but
the
it's
deal?
It's yeah.
But he's gonna want.
He
He's
wants
probably
to
gonna
win.
want. He's probably gonna want like something they can't do, just to say that. Oh, maybe. I don't know.
Like a new car or something.
I do want to see.
Yeah.
I would have rather seen John Jones in a much more competitive fight. Maybe he just makes people look this way. Who knows? I'm not going to discredit him for any of his in the cage stuff because he's a phenom inside there.
Absolute phenom.
Yeah.
He's phenomenal.
But outside of it, I think there's fighters in the UFC that have ended their career in a better note, like the ones that we. Like George St. Pierre, all of them. They've all fought the highest of the competition, even on their way out. Max Holloway, for example.
Oh, yeah.
He fought this dude that's a wrecking ball, and we saw what happened, but he at least was down to go in there and actually...
Yeah, well, this is going to like date my MMA experience, but it's like Rich Franklin ran into Silva and just couldn't beat him. And it was over for him. Like he fought him a bunch of times, and it was clear he wasn't going to beat him. And that was it.
Yeah.
But
till this day, I must say that Rich Franklin, where he got caught in that tie clinch, is the most traumatizing fight. It still runs through my head.
Well, I'm glad I could bring that up for you. So
no, it's just one of those of those destructions that you just can't get out of your head.
That's good. Ray was telling me that he's just happy because this weekend all the good dudes won. And
you gotta bring up this horrible nightmare.
All the bad dudes lost, and I could re-traumatize you here. You're welcome, buddy.
I don't know. So what are you, John? What are you gonna say? What should they do with this title? I mean, he can't be hanging on to a title and then just fighting once.
Not if they can't catch him.
Oh,
Ray.
yeah.
They can't catch him.
Oh,
I know. I think what they got. Like, honestly, I think what they got to do. And by the way, like I would put my money on Aspinall beating John Jones.
Well, so that's why he doesn't.
But John Jones could. I mean,
he can still win. It's not like it's
Jones
impossible.
Is absolutely capable of beating.
He's very
Aspinall.
smart in the.
And that's
octagon.
great.
Yeah.
But I think it's one of these things where if you're going to call yourself the champion and there's an interim champ there, you must fight. And I think what Dana needs to do is say, look, you want the Pereira super fight? Great. But there's some housekeeping that needs to be done first. We have an interim champion. You already had one fight dodging the interim champion. You've got to do that first. And if he says no, fine. Strip the title. Now change the interim title on Tom Aspinall to the heavyweight champ, and then set up a catchweight super fight, a non-title catchweight super fight between Alec Pereira and John Jones. And I'll tune into that. I want to see it. And by the way, it's not like I just straight up hate John Jones. I'm going to bring up this picture.
Oh, John, you hate him.
I actually hung out.
You hate him. No.
And I actually hung out.
There's only one John in your world.
With John Jones. This is a picture. I know you guys can't see it over there, but this is a picture of Ann and I took this picture of handing out with John Bones Jones at a Las Vegas pool party. And, you know, very cool guy to hang around. He was super nice. I couldn't have been more impressed with him. But you got to fight the interim champion.
Yeah.
And if you're not, don't call yourself the heavyweight champ. If you want to be an exhibition fighter to just get big paydays, God bless. But drop the belt and do that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it doesn't mean anything.
Don't you think he could actually get those big paydays with or without that title?
Yes,
I think,
that's the thing, yeah.
So like, why not just drop it?
Because he wants to call himself the champ.
Right.
And I
you
get
can't,
that.
You can't forfeit the title. You can't do
I mean,
that.
if you're not
King
gonna
of
fight,
England can abdicate the throne.
But that
you
was
can
for
give up
love,
the title.
John. That was for love.
Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? It was a boring ass fight watching John Jones fight a 42-year-old man who hasn't won a fight in nearly 5 years. Well done. What needs to happen now? Anyway, whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. And all right, guys, that'll do it for this week's installment of Filthy Sports. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you guys giving us your time. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the videos that you see, and come on back again next week. So I want to thank the guys sitting in the room with me over here. We got Matt.
Bye-bye.
Ryan.
Thanks, guys.
Ray.
boys,
Let's do it.
hit the showers.
Woo! I will. I won't do it. I'm not going to hit anything.
My name's John Campy, and until next time, everybody, bye-bye.